Let's go ahead and jump on in. As you can see, it was an exhibit to a filing that his attorney made in this federal lawsuit. The lawsuit was filed back in 2020 against Berkshire Life Insurance Company. He wanted his disability insurance benefits, claiming that he became disabled around January of 2016 when he hurt his back during a trip to the Philippines. And he was also alleging that he had experienced a big drop in income due to his back problems. So, of course, the insurance company denied his claim, and so he decided to sue him. This is the second lawsuit he was involved in that had to do with trying to get disability insurance benefits. The first lawsuit had to do with Standard Insurance Company, and the insurance company was defended by the same attorneys as in this case. And that case settled confidentially, so we don't know what exactly happened or if he got any money from that other lawsuit. So as you can see here, it happened on Tuesday, December 14th, 2021. It was held in the conference room of the court reporter's office out in Fort Lauderdale. Videotape deposition of Charles J. Adelson, DMD. And instead of reading everything verbatim, I'll just scroll through it a little bit slowly for those people who want to watch it on replay to be able to read everything themselves. There were a lot of exhibits attached to this deposition transcript. His answers to interrogatories, his medical records, pharmaceutical records, chiropractor records, progress notes with his doctor, a list of offices worked, a letter from a dentist that decided not to have anything to do with him after finding out about the suspicions surrounding him and the death of Dan Markel. Okay, emails and statements. All right. Okay, so just to summarize, Charlie mentions that he had, in the previous year, he had moved to a new place after living on Will Harper Drive for about 14 years. At that time, he was living on Tortugas Lane. I believe that's where he was arrested in April. So he said he got the new place because it's nicer, a little bit nicer, has an extra half bathroom. He says he's given a deposition about 4 or 5 times in his life. He had been involved in 3 medical malpractice lawsuits, as well as the lawsuit involving another disability insurance company. He said the malpractice cases were brought in 2008, maybe. And then there was another case where he had his deposition taken in 2018 or 2019 in another medical malpractice lawsuit. Okay, he says he's not married. He has 1 child. The child spent some nights with him. He took Advil that day, 600 milligrams. Sometimes he takes tizanidine, a muscle relaxer, when his back is really acting up. Makes him loopy. He denies having a girlfriend in the Philippines named Alyssa. So reading through this deposition again, I think it's pretty obvious that the attorney representing the defense or the insurance company did have access to the criminal case information and had read the police interviews that Charlie's ex-girlfriend June had done with the police officer and the FBI agent. So he did deny having a girlfriend in the Philippines. He refused to answer when asked if he went to the Philippines with Katie Magbanua, who was his ex-girlfriend, who's been convicted and sentenced to life in prison, but she has very recently made a proffer, so we're all waiting to see what results from Katie Magbanua's proffer. Okay, so in this part of the deposition, he says he's self-employed. His practice is called Charlie Adelson, DMD, PA. He said at this time of the deposition, which was almost exactly a year ago, that he was providing services in 4 or 5 dental offices. He gave the names of Dr. Mitchell Klein, Dr. Mark Blum, Dr. Marvin Ernst, and Dr. Labrada as people he was still doing work for. He was no longer doing work for the Adelson Institute. And it says here that the sale occurred in October of 2021, and he met the new owners once. He hasn't been asked to perform any services for the new owners. So he says that this is where he talks about his rental properties and how he's half owner of some sort of rental investment property, and mentions that there were a couple of other rental properties that he ended up selling to his father in 2020. Okay, so those were 1801 LLC and 519 LLC. He said they were sold in July of 2020, and his company, USA Legal Funding, was either sold or transferred to another company. He sold the real estate properties, quote, because my dad was a good partner and a good dad to me, and I decided to sell him the business. Question was, so is he still the owner of those properties? And Charlie said, I believe so, yeah. Okay, so in regards to USA Legal Funding, he says he was the sole owner. Well, he had a co-owner, but he's been the sole owner since 2017. He had a partner at the beginning. I think that might have been Ryan Fitzpatrick, who had testified at Katie Magbanua's trial. Oh, wait. No, he says here the partner was someone named Alex Berkovich in the very beginning, and that person also owns half of 731 LLC. He's asked if he worked for some time in Berkovich's wife's dental practice. He says yes, but he's no longer working there because Dr. Berkovich started placing a lot of her own implants, and implants was what Charlie mainly did there. So he says it wasn't really worth it to drive all the way there. It was a 40-minute trip, and his back was hurting him, and they parted on good ways, or on good terms. Okay, so he's asked about some other lawsuit called the Scott versus Adelson case, and he says, I don't even know. I really don't even know. Then he's asked about Price versus Adelson, which is the paternity and child support case that I read through in a previous live stream. Then he starts talking about his back. The pain began in January of 2016. And it said that it happened maybe around January 13th or January 14th, 2016. He was in the Philippines visiting his friend, Scott Radius, and he was sitting 4 people across in a taxi cab in traffic with Scott and Scott's coworkers. And he was sitting in a twisted position, and his back started hurting, and it seemed to be more painful when he got out of the cab. Okay, so he mentioned also that apparently there was some list of about 35 different dentists that he had worked for in the past, but he was saying that that due to his back pain and back injury, that he wasn't able to work as much, and it really aggravated his back, especially to be bending over and twisting for long periods of time. So that's why by the time this deposition was taken, he was only working for maybe 4 or 5 dentists, down from roughly 30 odd people. Yeah, so page 41 is where he says, I was crammed in the back of a taxi. I was like sitting 4 across, and I had my legs positioned one way and my torso the other way. And I was sitting like that probably 40 minutes in traffic. And then when we got out, it was in Manila. And when we got out and I went to go step out, I guess everything locked up and I threw my back out at that point. Question, okay, what did you do? Answer, I said, boy, that hurts a lot. I threw my back out. Question, okay, who was with you? Answer, my one friend that was with me was Scott Radius, but I don't even know if he was in the cab with me because there was a bunch of people from his work that we were going from cabs to. Everyone was going out to eat somewhere. Okay, so the attorney, Mr. Hetherington, says, are you going to answer any questions about Catherine Magbanua at this deposition? Answer, my attorneys advised me not to. Question, and you're going to follow that advice? Answer, I'm following the advice of my attorney. Okay, so anytime he's asked about Dan Markel and whether, the decrease in business and his decrease in workload could have been connected to the murder of his former brother-in-law, Dan Markel, again, he just keeps saying that he's not going to answer that question. And then his attorney backs him up and says, I advise him not to answer that question. So he denies having a girlfriend. He's joking and saying, who's my girlfriend's? My girlfriend's name is Buddy. It's Buddy, a 16-month-old English Mastiff. I'll give you, you want his picture? But the attorney persists and says, you know who Catherine Magbanua is, correct? And his attorney, Hasselbrock, says, objection, same instruction. And Charlie said, I don't know what's so funny, why you're laughing at me. Okay, so that was kind of a weird point in the deposition where they are kind of smiling or maybe mocking him because he won't answer any questions about Katie. He later says that there was another dentist named Dr. Kaufman. I think that's a female dentist who prescribed him some pain medications due to his back problems or back pain. And there was one day when Dr. Kaufman called him crying and upset because she had been harassed by a journalist. And that's when she told Charlie that it was probably better for him not to work at her clinic until the whole matter was resolved. Okay, so page 49, he's asked, did you tell Ms. Umchinda, that was his girlfriend back in 2016, roughly, about your back condition? He says, or we may not have been dating, so let me not even, I would have, yeah, for sure. No, she knows about my back, but I don't recall if we were dating at that time, but question, who was? Is there someone else you could have been dating at that time based on your recollection as we sit here today? Answer, nobody. Question, nobody you can recall? Answer, no, I may not have been dating someone at that exact moment in time. Okay, so they're kind of going back and forth. He claims that June never lived at his house, but she did spend a night at the house. Says the relationship was on and off for maybe a year and a half. Okay, so Charlie claims in this depo that he declined doing work for a few dentists due to his back pain, and since January 2016, he hasn't taken on work at any new offices. He said, quote, if I sit too long, it locks up. Okay, so I will just go ahead and scroll on through this. This is talking about his flights and what airline he took. He says he doesn't keep his calendars. He throws them away at the end of the year. He started using a day minder or a calendar since high school. So he says that he would complain to a lot of people about his back problems, but the only one he really talked to about it in terms of dentists was Dr. Mariana Kaufman, because he was in her office and was in excruciating pain. But of course, he does say that it's not like something he would just flat out come into someone's office and start talking about, because, that would seem kind of unprofessional, or, he still wanted to keep up his work relationships. So they go through the prescriptions written by Dr. Kaufman. One was a Medrol dose pack given to reduce swelling and inflammation, and also Tylenol 3 with codeine. This was from January of 2016. Okay, he claims that they don't have a social or friendly relationship. And then there's another dentist named Andrew. That he also worked for back then. He said it was very sporadic work. He knew Andrew from dental school. He says he last taught to Dr. Kaufman maybe a couple of years. Okay, so page 70 is where he talks about, quote, "We stopped working together in June of 16, and it was because she'd seen some things on TV and she wanted to suspend our relationship until this was over. And she saw that I had nothing to do with it. And I assured her, I said, listen, I had nothing to do with any of the stuff that you're seeing on TV. I don't even watch the TV, so I can't even tell you, comment on it. I'm not even allowed to comment on it other than to tell you that I'm innocent." And she said, "Well, when this is over, I'd love to have you back." So I said, "No, I understand, I understand your concerns." And she felt really bad. She was crying on the phone. And I said, "Listen, I had nothing to do with it." I said, "I can't even talk to you about it, but people can say anything they want to say." And she's like, "Yeah, I know it's not true." And I said, Okay, question. "And when you say you, quote, had nothing to do with it, unquote, you're referring to the reports on TV about your brother-in-law's murder, correct?" Answer, "I haven't watched what you're talking about, so." Question, "Well, I'm asking what you're talking about." Answer, "Well, that's what I would assume, yeah." And I just told her it was just a blanket answer. I had nothing to do with it, and I can't talk to you about it. Okay, so this is where Charlie says that she was getting harassed, or a reporter kept harassing her. She was afraid of the reporter. The reporter started calling the office. Okay, so anyway, let's just speed on through here, because the next thing that I noted is not until page 99. So this whole thing is 394 pages. So tonight, I'm thinking of just going up through, say, like 150 something. Okay, they took a break, got back in, still talking about the TENS unit. Sounds like he used it for a little while, and back problems seemed to be a little better at first. Then it got aggravated the more he worked because of the position he was in, and it also depended on the amount of time he was in that position. So he said, "Yes, when I hurt my back, I tried to work less." He started reducing his availability to offices. Okay, they're talking about all the different offices. He said it could have been more than 35 or more, but there was a list provided, okay, a list of doctors' offices. Okay, Erica Johnson is the assistant or receptionist, or was, at Charlie's dad's office. She still works for the new owners. So she would have created the spreadsheet. Okay, so they're asking him more about whether it's correct, the compilation of all those doctors that he claimed that he had previously worked for, most of whom he could no longer work for due to his alleged back injury. Okay, he says his phone number has not changed at all since 2014. He says, "I believe it's the same since 2000. He says, "I don't even have a computer." The question is, okay, so you've got one phone? And he said, "Got one phone." Question, one phone number? Answer, one phone number. Okay, so again, they're trying to figure out, which offices did he quit and what did he tell people, turning down office work because he was in excruciating pain. He's asked specifically about someone at Dr. Devak's office where Charlie says he told her that he hurt his back and he's not trying to get any more offices. Another dentist is brought up here. And Charlie says he was also saying to that person how his back was hurting, so he wasn't going to do more work. Okay, so page 99, Charlie describes the injury some more. He said, quote, "It's something I'm always aware of. It's a constant, dull throb, but it can get exacerbated really quickly depending on what activity I'm doing. So when I'm sitting in one position like this right now, and when I've been sitting like this, hunched over with bad posture, or even just sitting up, I have to get up and move around. Having some movement and standing helps me." Question, so standing is okay, sitting hurts for you, but when you're standing, I guess, bending and twisting is something that causes you pain. Is that fair? Answer, and when I'm in a lot of pain, obviously it feels better when I take a seat, but if I sit too long, it locks up. Question, so I take it travel is difficult for you. Answer, as long as I can move around, sitting is fine. Travel is fine. I mean, I'm sitting here. I'm sitting in a chair, but as long as I can get up and move, I'm fine. Okay, so they're talking more about his back condition. Later on in 2016, he thought it was going to get better. Okay, so he says the back pain got better. He was taking ibuprofen. He was using moist heat and a stim pad. He later started taking tizanidine. He sought a doctor in August of 2016 because the pain wasn't going away and was getting worse. So page 102, he says that it was never back to normal. Working, being bent or twisted to the side would aggravate his pain. Then later he's asked about an orthopedic doctor, Dr. Gottlieb, but Charlie says he only saw the person once because he was not impressed with Dr. Gottlieb. That was the doctor who supposedly hated his ex-wife, and Charlie says his sister dated him briefly, but he's not sure the extent of their relationship. They could have just gone out to dinner a couple of times. So Gottlieb, according to the medical records, based on what the attorney was asking him about, Gottlieb had recommended that Charlie get an MRI and physical therapy, which sounds like Charlie did not do. So Gottlieb's records seem to have contradicted what Charlie was saying. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so Charlie was saying he was making himself less available for extra stuff. He says, quote, "If I was in excruciating pain, I would have been less available. When I injured myself and I was in pain and my phone rang, I wasn't running into that late night office. But by 16, it was a different game. By September of 16, it was different." Okay, he says that he feels like his back feels worse today. "I feel older. It's been 5 years. The attorney says that's natural. Okay, so Charlie says, "My back's worse today than it was in 16 for sure. I mean, the limitations haven't gone away." All right, so later on, they start asking him about his travels. Okay, so this is still about his medication, the Medrol dose pack and the Motrin and the Advil, Tylenol 3, pain pills. Okay, so still scrolling along. Okay, so then they're talking about a chiropractor, Friedman. Charlie claims he doesn't know who referred him to Dr. Friedman, the chiropractor. So it sounded like the insurance attorney was insinuating that perhaps one of Charlie's attorneys had referred him to go see the specific chiropractor, but Charlie denies that. Okay, so this is the part about Gottlieb. And I guess he had seen someone named Dr. Gelb back in 2009 when he hurt his shoulder. That might have been an auto accident. Okay, this is where he's talking about Dr. Gottlieb. Gottlieb was far away. Okay, this is where Charlie says he blocked it out. He has no recollection of going to see Dr. Gottlieb. Question, why? Answer, he dated my sister. Question, he dated your sister? Answer, yeah, that's how I ended up going there. I wasn't real impressed with him. Question, why not? Answer, I don't think she was impressed with him either. Question, when did he date your sister? Answer, before I saw him. Question, like before? That doesn't help me much. Like in answer, well, question, 1980 or, like when? Answer, probably around the same time she referred me to him. Question, okay, so August of 2016 was a pretty interesting time for your family. As I recall, your sister was dating some guy. Answer, question, that testified in the court hearing. So, answer, I don't know when they dated, but yeah, that's how I came to call his office. Question, okay, so seeing his name in this record, has that refreshed your recollection? You didn't remember that when you walked in here today? Answer, met the man once in my life. Question, okay, and so your sister referred you to him? Answer, I believe if this is the guy that was divorced and hates his wife. Yeah. Question, so your sister referred you to a guy who is divorced and hates his wife? Answer, listen, question, that sounds pretty odd. Answer, get confused. Question, given at least what's public about your sister's situation. Answer, well, Hasselbrock, objective form. The witness, yeah, that's how I got the number to his office. Hetherington, from your sister? Answer, I believe so, yeah, and I don't want to speak for her, but I believe they may have dated. Yeah, I think so. Question, okay, so you told your sister, I take it, that you had back pain and needed a doctor, and she gave you the name of Dr. Gottlieb, and that's why you went there. That's your testimony? Answer, I don't know if I ever discussed my back pain with my sister. Question, well, I thought you said she referred you to Dr. Gottlieb. Answer, she did, but it may have been, then maybe she did. Maybe that's how I got the number. Yeah. Question, yeah, I mean, it wasn't like she was like, hey, if your back ever starts hurting, go see this guy. Answer, yeah. Question, right? I mean, she must have said, you must have told her something. Answer, or I may have said, like, I need to see someone, my back's bothering me. Yeah, and she gave me the number. Then I made an appointment. Okay, he says, I don't know the details of my sister's relationships. That's where he says he's not sure. They may have gone to dinner twice. They may have gone to dinner once. They may have gone 10 times. I have no idea. But I wasn't that impressed, and he was an hour and 40 minutes away. Okay, so talking more about why he wasn't impressed by that doctor and how he wound up going to see the chiropractor Friedman. So let's get back down here. And later, when he's asked about his trips, he mentions that in September of 2020, he did go to Mexico and Colorado to see his cousin, Howard. So that's where I noted something starting on page 145. So let's get back down to there. Okay, this is where they're talking about vacations or travels. Okay, question. Did you provide this information? I mean, these are the interrogatories you signed, and this is the list of trips that it looks like you took from, looks like the end of 2015 through September of 2020. You see that? Answer, yeah. Question, is that a complete list during that time frame to the best of your knowledge as we sit here today? Answer, it looks to be from what I can remember, yeah. Question, okay. Have you traveled since September of 2020 anywhere? Answer, just give me a second to think. September of 2020, not that I can remember. Actually, you know what? I think I stopped off I was in Colorado to see family on the way home from the West Coast. So I think the one thing on there that would need to be added would be I went to see my family in Colorado in October. Question of 2021. Answer on that, it was that same trip. Was it 21 or no, 20? Not 21. I haven't gone anywhere in 21. Question. Okay, so you haven't gone anywhere in 21, but the September 2020 trip, it says to Mexico. You stopped in Colorado on your way home. Answer. On the way back, yeah. Question. Okay, and you said to visit family. Which family was that? Okay, so talking about that's his cousin in Colorado. And the attorney mentions 3 trips to the Philippines. And that middle trip, December of 15, that's the one we talked about where you hurt your back in the cab, correct? You went in December and then returned in January of 2016? Answer, right. Question, correct? Answer, Question, yes. Answer, yes. Question, okay, why did you go to the Philippines in September of 15? Answer, to see friends. Question, which ones? Answer, Scott Radius. Question, did you see anybody else? Answer, that's my only friend that's there. Question, that's your only friend that's there? Answer, Question, okay, did you travel with anybody on that trip? Answer, with Scott Radius, yeah. Question, you traveled from the United States to the Philippines? Answer, oh no, I traveled by myself. Question, okay, and what about November of 16? Why did you go to the Philippines in November of 16? Answer, to see friends. Question, same friends? Answer, same friends, yeah. Question, okay, so are all 3 trips you traveled alone to the Philippines to see Scott Radius? Is that your testimony? Answer, yes. Question, okay. Why did you go to Houston in June of 2016? Okay, so he mentions his cousin Josh was graduating from medical school in Texas. Going to the Philippines was roughly 2 weeks. They were all roughly 2-week trips. He went to Croatia in August of 2016. He says he was just doing sightseeing to look at the mountains. He traveled by himself but met up with a friend named John there. The friend traveled there. The friend actually lives in Florida. Okay, so they ask him, how long's the flight to Croatia and back? He says, it's got to be 7-8 hours, I'm guesstimating. It was a direct flight. And then he says they flew into Venice. And then he can't remember how they got to Croatia from Venice, but he remembers taking a plane to Venice. He says his back always hurts. Question, nothing stands out? No. I mean, as long as I can get up, move around, and not bend over and twist to the side and look upside down for hours at a time. Question, are you finished? Answer, yeah. Okay, then he says he went to Vegas in September of 2016. Sometime in 2016, he went there by himself, met his cousin Josh from Texas, and Josh's dad flew out there. He was in Vegas for 3 days. He also went to Colombia in October of 2016. He stayed there 3 days. He went there with his cousin and someone named Sean, who I guess is probably also his cousin. He said he went to Colombia to do sightseeing and see family. Then he went to New York in November 2016 to see a friend named Jeremy. Says he was there for 2 days. Vegas trip was also 2 days. He stayed at his friend's place. November 2016, went to the Philippines. Okay, so the attorney asked him, what was going on in 2016 that caused you to travel more? Answer, I was trying to take more time off. I know that. But I think it was just a couple of unique events. One of my really close friends was fighting in the UFC out in Las Vegas, so I went out to see his fight. That's why I went out to Las Vegas, was to watch him fight. He was the co-main event for the UFC. Otherwise, that's why I was out there. New York, I was seeing a friend from dental school that I hadn't seen in years, so I went up there for 2 days. I had an opportunity to see him, but I was trying to rest up as much too. Question, did the publicity around your ex-brother-in-law's murder have anything to do with you wanting to get out of town a little more during that time? Answer, I'm not going to discuss anything on the advice of my attorney having to do with that case. Question. Okay. So you're refusing to answer that question, Hasselbrock. Can I hear that the question again? Sure. Anyway, so let's stop here. So this is where he's just saying he's not going to answer any questions that might pertain to Dan Markel's murder.